Welcome to the Healthy Aging Pod. I'm Kelly Yee. You can follow me on Instagram at Kelly Yee Yoga or subscribe to my YouTube channel at Avatar Yoga. In partnership with EPC Canada, we are excited to bring you our Healthy Aging webcast series. Our guest today is Cindy Boury, a financial management advisor with over 20 years of industry experience. Her commitment is to the financial well-being of individuals and to give them sound financial solutions. Hello, welcome, Cindy. How are you?
Very well, thank you, Kelly.
Thank you for being here. So let's get right to it. Let's discuss money. So this is a topic, as we know, that's often avoided. Many of us actually fear it or we stress over it. And I wanted to sort of have this discussion with you because I hear it a lot, and even within myself, it's like we feel that we either don't have enough of it, or if we do feel comfortable with the amount of money we have, we don't actually know what to do with the money. So I wanted to ask you, based on your experience, what are some things people fear, unfortunately fear, when it comes to finances, money, and wealth?
Well, it actually depends where they are in their financial profile. So the very first thing about managing money is having transparency and communication. So if you're married, you and your spouse need to be on the same page with your goals. You need to talk about it. Often people feel failure, they feel looking foolish, and sometimes they hesitate to discuss some of the issues that they've maybe created. For example, it's really easy to get a loan and credit card, but it can take you years to pay this stuff down. So often, credit card debt and overspending can be an issue. And what you have to do is get past your own sort of self judgment or realizing that you've got yourself in this position. And you need to bring these issues forward. And the very first person, again, if you have a significant other, is you must share it with them. Uh, People also fear a lot of different things. Sometimes it can actually come from their background, their upbringing, or even their culture. One of the things, fear of living on the street, fear of not making your bills, fear of not having food and shelter. So the first three things is food, shelter, and clothing. So once you have those three main pieces taken care of, then most of the basic needs are done. Sometimes people fear those three things. Once you get past those three things, people often fear losing the lifestyle they become accustomed to. Their sense of self-worth can be attached to this. They fear that somebody will find out things about them that they're not, successful at. For example, high debt is often an issue. Fear of missing payments, struggling to manage within their means can also be things that are really detrimental to your financial success. When you grow your wealth, it's very different from when you have your wealth. And when you have wealth, you often have a whole different set of issues. So for people who have wealth, they fear losing what they have. They fear being taken advantage of. They fear managing their estate incorrectly and not being able to manage or avoid serious issues in the house. And many of them want to help their family in a fair manner, and they don't know how to. So fear of making a foolish mistake and having it cost you more than you can afford is often a type of fear as well.
Okay. So on that note, how can people secure their financial health across their lifespan? So as you mentioned, once we sort of we meet our basic needs, which that's all fundamental in most of us. So let's just assume now everyone's able to meet their needs. Beyond that, how can people secure their financial health now and across the lifespans? Because some people can secure their lifespan or their financial health very temporarily, and then as they get older, it starts to dissipate.
Sometimes very basic can be an answer. So first of all, make sure you have a budget. Like understand first that what goes out is less than what comes in. So if you are making more money than what you're putting out, that's your very first step of being financially secure. So that means that you have less payments than you have cash flow. You want to have your debts paid down. You pay down your higher tax debts, your higher expense debt first. For example, a credit card debt over a lower cost debt. Once you have these things kind of under control, Kelly, like you've mentioned, then what I suggest is you start setting up your goals. So when people start to step back and look forward in time at their goal setting, that helps give you a target. And once you have a target, then you can start working towards that. If you don't even know your goals and you have no target, it's hard to give you that direction. So that's where you often need a coach or an advisor or someone to work with you to help you set up your goals. And then once you have your goals, we work with people to help them create the steps they need to hit those goals. So the thing is to understand, again, that balance of what goes in and out, and then to be clear on what your goals are and your timeline.
That sounds a lot more simple than I think many
it's a
of
little
us.
more involved. And sometimes people say, well, it must be exciting. And I go, actually, it can be kind of boring.
Okay.
It's the regular deposits. It's setting up this systematic strategy that allows you to sort of let it go, not on autopilot, but to take out that surplus of income you don't need, push that money towards things that are your goal planning. So your goal planning could be pay down credit card debt, pay down debt. It could be to buy your RSP. It could be to buy your tax-free. It could be to manage tax. It's really irrelevant what it is as long as it's yours. And our younger clients, we don't plan to end of life because when you're 30, 60 years is a long way. So people say, how do you actually do this? And I said, think of your life as a chapter of a book. Some of your chapters are big, some are short, but at each chapter, it's a major change. Being single, if you choose to get married, having children, putting them through university, getting ready for retirement, all those are different chapters. Sometimes we cover all the chapters with people. Sometimes they only want to go to one chapter. Again, as long as we can see the goals being set up properly and people working towards them, that will give them some financial help. It also gives them savings and defensive money in case something goes wrong. So what we find, a lot of people don't have enough savings or defensive money in case something goes wrong. And those could be a health issue, a disability, it could be a death, it could be a layoff, it could be a spike in interest rate, you can't afford the interest on the whatever it is. So if something goes wrong, and if you have the wherewithal to manage your way through, now you have a better financial health and the stress will start to slide off. People worry because they don't have enough defense.
Okay. Well, I love that you were saying that, about setting goals.
Oh, it's so important.
Yeah. So speaking of goals, how can people, or should people be thinking about their financial health for their next generation, or is it just within their own lifespan? I mean, I guess, is that dependent on their goals?
It is. So again, I have the absolute pleasure. I have a number of years and I built a lot of financial plans. The most difficult was my own. So the reason is, if you want to do it properly, you must spend time and do some soul searching. If you wish to help your family, and absolutely if you're able, help your family, but it has to be in the program. So for example, if you want to help your children with a down payment on the house, it needs to be built in there. It has to be identified that you have enough so that you don't compromise your own retirement and or all the years you've saved up to be independent at your elderly years. And being independent could even be bringing in services if you have a health issue. Money enables us sometimes to have this independence. So what we don't want to see with our parents is them compromising their independence and the quality of their retirement to help their children, because their children maybe haven't saved. So when my clients come to me and say, I want to help my children, my very first question is, what have they done? And if they haven't bothered to put $1 towards buying a house, then I go to, well, when you bought your very first house, it was really easy. And my clients go, well, of course not. Part of being a homeowner is understanding that in order to do these things, sometimes you have to give up something. And if the children start to save and get ready for down payment and it works in the parents' planning, absolutely. We all want our children to be successful. You can't make them. It's the steps we have to do, sometimes together or with them. And by the way, for all the parents out there who want to help their children, you have to lead by example. You have to lead by example. So if the parent has a huge amount of credit card debt and a huge amount of leverage, and the children were born and raised in these environments where you live month to month, why would they know anything different? So I'm a little bit tough on that. It's my clients know. So, and again, we're here to give good direction, positive feedback, engage you, help you, support you to hit these goals. But I also know there's only one person who can make it work, and it's not me.
I love that tough love.
A little bit some days, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, but we have to, as a good advisor and support or coach to our people, we have to be able to have a good fit and a trusting relationship with them so that we can be transparent and direct when we give this kind of structured support, because there's a reason it hasn't been fixed yet.
Right.
It's because maybe the person's struggling to kind of get through that decision making. So we help you with that. And if you can't give your children as much, for example, as you wish, well, then the parent can decide whatever they want to adjust to make this work if that's the priority. And if not, sometimes we bring the family together and we have other discussions. So again, everything is manageable if everybody's on board.
Great. So you did mention about buying a home. So one of the questions that I have here is it better to have more cash flow or to be highly leveraged? And I know that this discussion comes up because often we think investment and people are wanting to invest in a home, which is it can be a good investment. But I've also heard where people have been highly leveraged, where they're purchasing maybe multiple homes but they have no cash flow. And what in your opinion is better?
It's a balancing effect. So for example, if you want to buy a $1 million house and you have to save, I don't even know what it is, say $300,000 for it for the down payment, you're going to have to become a saver. So maybe rather than buying $1 million house, you start with half or a third of that cost by buying an apartment or a townhouse. What's affordable, what's doable. I've been through a number of economic cycles. So we have an expectation of inflation, but we also have an expectation in the next several years of interest rate increasing. So the real question I ask my clients is, if you have $1 million of leverage and your interest rate doubles, is it going to hurt you? And if the answer is yes, you need to pay down the principal. If the answer is, I have piggyback leveraging, then my question is, so for example, you have multiple properties that are piggybacked, you're not a company, you're a sole income provider. If something happened, do you have enough savings to make it through if you have 3 to 6 months of no rent? And if you don't, then you're at a high risk piece. So a high risk debt, some people manage it very, very well. It's not for most of you. And the reason is when you calculate how many years it takes to pay down your principal, it takes for a long, long time. So most people, when they retire, most people prefer not to have debt at retirement. When you look at how much money goes towards the mortgage plus the interest, just make sure it's manageable. So to answer your question, Kelly, my comment and most of my clients, I don't support credit card debt. If you have personal debt and it's not deductible, borderline, make sure it makes sense by the size of the home versus the income and savings. If you want to buy a bigger home and you can't qualify, save up. Mock up the mortgage. If your mortgage payment is $2,800 a month, start saving $2,800 a month. And you'll know if you can afford this and manage a lifestyle. And what happens is sometimes people get into these situations and they have no life. And then one thing goes wrong, they have no savings. So it's not even a matter of, is it right to high risk or bad or low risk? It's more of a question of, are you set up? If something goes wrong, you can afford this. And if you can't, then I say no. If you can, then you've done your steps and you've gone into this with your eyes wide open and you're well aware of the risk and the potential challenges you could be exposed to in the future. So to answer your question, I prefer to pay down my debt. So I will take debt. I took debt when I bought my home and I paid it down. Then you have money to do other things with. Buy my RSPs, buy my TFSAs. If you want to expand at that point, you have more cash flow. So again, debt management is something you must be very careful with, and it's not for everyone. If you don't have the understanding, the trading, and the structure, you're at risk.